So we're going to look at notes 8-2, and this is day 2, and we're factoring. And it's, can I factor a monomial from a polynomial? And how I want to explain this to you is that we are going backwards from what we were doing yesterday. Yesterday, we were multiplying. And today we're going to undo that. So if you think of undoing multiplying when we're factoring here, we're going to be dividing. So I have, this was actually yesterday's problem. The very first problem, if you look back at your notes. So this is a review from yesterday. And you notice that we applied the distributive property. And so we distribute to everything inside the parentheses and we get 3x plus 21. What do you notice about 3x plus 21 in my example 1? Yeah, they look the same. So when we factor, we need to think about what is divisible. What can I divide into both 3x and 21? What is the biggest? We're looking for the greatest common factor. And so what we can divide, our greatest one in this situation, is the number 3. We're really thinking of our multiplication and division facts here. So if I divide 3 into both of these, okay, that is the factor, so I'm going to pull that factor out front. And 3 divided by 3 is just a 1x, plus 21 divided by 3 is 7. And you know you had your greatest common factor? Because if you look at what's in the parentheses, all we have left would be the number 1. So that is how we factor, just finding the greatest common divided out. Example 2 is a little different because we have more than just a number that would be a factor. Okay, and I kind of like to look at it like this. I'm going to start example 2 by, I always had said this before, write it out. So this is really 5x times x times x plus 25x times x plus 45x. And so we need to think about, what do they all have in common? We'll start with the number. What number can you divide into 5, 25, and 45? What would be the biggest? Yeah, the biggest is going to be 5. So we're going to divide all of these by 5. But how many x's do they all, keyword there, have in common? They all have at least one x. So 5x is going to be your greatest common factor. So we write that out front of our parentheses. Now we just think of division. 5 divided by 5 is 1. X divided by x is 1. How many x's do I have? I have x squared plus 25 divided by 5 is 5. X divided by x is 1, and I have an x left, plus, and 45 divided by, oh, I should have left a 5 there, sorry. 45 divided by 5 would be 9. X divided by x is 1, so all I have left is 9. So this is how you would factor when you have a greatest common factor with a number and a letter. Remember, we're dividing it out. How we could check our answer is by doing what we did yesterday. Day 1, we can multiply. So if you wanted to check, you could multiply back through, multiply everything using the distributive property, and you should have gotten what you started with. Let's look at one more. Ooh, this one. What I would do, just like I've talked about before, let's start by changing all subtraction to add the opposite. We just don't want to accidentally lose any symbols. Let's go ahead and, again, we could write this one out. I would write it out as 4x to the 5th. So 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Plus negative 24, 1, 2, 3, plus 8x. So if we think about what they both, or they all three, what my greatest common factor would be for these. Well, 4 is going to be the biggest value that you're going to divide by. And how many x's do they at least all have? They all have at least 1. Sometimes maybe they'd have 2, sometimes maybe 3, but they all have to have it. So my greatest common factor here is 4x. And now let's just go ahead. That would be what is written out in front of our parentheses. We're dividing that out. Let's see what we have left. 4 divided by 4 is 1. X divided by x is 1. So we're left with x to the 4th plus negative 24 divided by 4, which would be a negative 6. And cross off one of my x's, we have x squared plus 8 divided by 4 we know is going to be 2. And that's it. So we're kind of undoing that distributive property. We're finding out what our greatest common factor is. I wrote it out for us to see there. And then we're dividing that out. And we're undoing that distributive property. Factoring, 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 factoring polynomials here. That's all we've got. Have a good one.